Hey there, good to see you. So a few months ago here on my channel, I published a video where I compared 4 different fine art inkjet photography papers made by Hahnemühle. And I printed both a color image and a black and white image, compared and contrasted, the papers against one another, and shared with you which one I preferred and which one I thought was best. Well, a few weeks after I published that video, the company contacted me, reached out, to say, thanks for making the video, because they didn't have anything to do with it. I paid for all the paper that was in that video, and they kindly offered to send me additional papers if there was anything else I was interested in trying and testing out, which was perfect timing because I've been thinking about buying a pack of these. If you don't know what these are Hahnemühle fine art photo cards. These are, metal tins, and each tin has 30 cards inside. And when you buy a pack of photo cards, you can choose the type of paper that it comes with. Hahnemühle sent me 4 different types of paper, 4 different paper types that I've never used before. These are papers that are part of their natural line. So I have hemp, bamboo, agave, and sugarcane. And these photo cards seem really interesting because the cards inside have radius corners around the outside. They're not, square edged, just like normal pieces of paper that you could just trim yourself. And they also come with this reusable tin. So what you could do is you could print a bunch of cards, put them back in the tin, and this paper label here, this comes off. And you could put your company logo on here. You could put like a sticker, a label, whatever you want. Give these away as gifts, to like friends and family. You could use this as like a mini portfolio for, prospective clients. There's a number of different, use cases, a number of different things that could be done with these. 3 of them are 290 GSM and the sugarcane is 300 GSM. GSM meaning, the weight of the paper, like, how the paper feels in your hand when you're holding it. And generally speaking, you want your fine art photo paper to feel substantive, right? I mean, you want it to have some weight to it. So that's nice. So these are, this is like real photo paper. And as you can see, the little piece of paper comes right off. And then under this little sheet of protective paper, then we have the cards. Now the cards, just like right out of the box, they are a little warped. I don't know, maybe it's because I live in a humid state and it's summer. They probably got some moisture in them, but yeah, they're not quite flat. And I don't know, maybe that won't be a problem when we actually set these up. And just looking at this bamboo paper, it is definitely a matte paper, not a gloss or a semi-gloss or a luster or anything of the sort. It is a very, very natural, very flat matte paper. So in order to print on these cards, you have to download, or they recommend downloading. I haven't tried this any other way, but they recommend downloading a template. And this template is what we use to tape the cards onto. So I have some double-sided tape here and going to give this a try. Going to stick one to the back of the paper up top, then another one down here. Okay, and as you can see on the template here, by the way, these are the 2 sizes. So there's the 4x6 size and then the A5, which is like 6 by 8 inches. That's the larger size that you can get, but this is the one that I have here. So I want to place the card just right into the corners here. Get it as straight as I possibly can. Hopefully that curl at the top of the bottom won't be too much of a problem, but I guess we'll find out. I may need to put more tape under here, but the next step is jumping over into Photoshop and resizing the image and preparing it for print. So Hahnemühle recommends resizing images to 4¼ by 6¼ inches so that they print a little bit outside of the margins. Obviously, we need to change the aspect ratio first. So click on the crop tool, select ratio here in the dropdown, and I'm going to type in 6.25 by 4.25. Those are the recommended dimensions. And then just, adjust my image, just, lift it up a little bit from the bottom, get rid of some of that sky. I did this to my original PSD. I probably shouldn't have done that, but we should be working with a different file. So let's duplicate this. And now we need to resize it. So come up here to go to image size. 300 dpi is good, that's fine. And let's change the width to 6.25. And now you can see the height is correct, 4.25. That's exactly what we want. Click OK. Obviously, this will be different if you're printing on an Epson printer or something like that. You'll probably have your own software. But for the Canon Pro 300, which is what I print with, this is the software that I use. And whatever you're using, I mean, you know, the next steps are, you know, they're going to be pretty much exactly the same. Okay, for paper type, you want to make sure that you choose a heavyweight fine art paper because these cards are thicker. Paper size, this is not the size of the card. You want to make sure that you choose the size of the template. If you have it taped down on your paper, you want to choose 8.5 by 11. I'm going to send this through the top of the printer, print quality highest, all that good stuff. And then here you want to make sure that your image is perfectly centered in the middle because that is how Hahnemühle's paper template is designed. It's expecting the card to be directly right here in the middle of the piece of paper. And then you just want to make sure that your size is correct. You want to make sure that your width and your height is exactly 4.25 by 6.25 because that is actual size. That is 100% for the image that we just resized. Next step down here, you want to make sure that you choose the appropriate printer profile. If you have an option for use black point compensation, absolutely use that. Again, that'll help retain some of those details, and that should do it. So with that, I think we're ready to print. Okay, that was fun. Let's try to remove this card from the paper. This is a little bit stickier than I thought it was going to be. Okay. I think the tape I used may have been just a little too strong. It did tear up the back of the card a little bit. Let me actually try this other one too. Let's just see what happens. I think this one may be even worse. This time I just used a tiny little piece of double-sided tape up here at the top. Did not bother putting it anywhere else because, you know, once it feeds down through the printer, it doesn't really need any additional tape, I don't think. So just use one little piece here. And yeah, that worked much, much better, much cleaner, no problem then. I think I just used way too much double-sided tape before. I think I just overdid it and thought I needed to use a lot. I think part of the key too is removing it soon after you mount it. Don't let them like sit on the paper for a while. And yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I think that looks really nice. I like the size of it. I like the feeling of it, the weight of it. Photo looks great. I think it's really cool. There is something I want to try though. I'm really tempted to try and inset this image a little bit and print the image with radius corners as well so that we get like a nice white border, rounded border around the outside. Let's give that a try. Okay, so now we need to resize the image. And again, I'm going to use a ratio here. Now, I think a border of about 0.2 inches sounds about right. So if the card is 5.9 inches by 4 inches, that means 5.5 by 3.6. And now go to image size. Again, going to change the dimensions here, 5.5 by 3.6. That sounds right. Grab the rectangle tool, set the fill to whatever you want. Let's just do white. No stroke. Make sure that that is set to transparent. And then over here, you want to choose a radius number. And I think 30 sounds about right. I'm just going to resize it here just to make sure it's snapping to the edges of the image. If you look at the, at the radius corners now and you think, that wasn't quite enough and you want to add more or maybe even, tone it down a little bit, you just grab this little circle right here and just pull this in or, push it up into the corner. That seems about right. Well, we'll find out. So after you get your rectangle, then you grab your rectangle, you put it underneath your image, hold down the Option or Alt key on your keyboard, depending on whether you're using Mac OS or Windows, click on it, and voila, our image now has radius corners. And here is the result. I think this looks pretty cool. My math, I think, was maybe a little bit off, or I positioned the card a little bit off on the paper because the border isn't quite right. It doesn't look as perfect as I want, but stylistically speaking, it's absolutely right. And it's kind of nice because it gives you like a little edge to like be holding on to the image. And I think it gives it just, I don't know, like a little extra style. I think that's pretty cool. And while I was doing this and making additional prints, I started thinking about the fact that my printer, the Pro 300, actually has a borderless printing mode. in it where it can print outside the edges of the paper. And I think it has some kind of like internal sponge thing that like catches the overspray, or I don't know. The borderless printing thing has always kind of freaked me out a little bit because I don't like the idea of like ink spraying around inside of the printer. You know, I feel like it should be within the confines of the paper. But for the purposes of this video, and I thought some of you may be curious to know if it works, I decided to give it a try. And at least with my Canon Pro 300, it definitely works. I just used a 4x6 size in Canon professional print and layout software. And then I fed this paper directly into the Canon Pro 300 without using one of these templates here. And yeah, I mean, it's a borderless print. Hey, so it's been a few days since I recorded, the earlier part of this video, and I've had more time to experiment with these cards, to print different images with these cards, including black and white. And I have some thoughts about the differences between these different natural papers. And I'll get to that in a minute. But first thing I want to mention is that I just stopped using the paper templates because my Canon can print borderless. If that is something that your printer supports, I don't think you shouldn't have any trouble with this. When you buy white photo paper, it's a lot like buying white paint at the store, right? When you go to Home Depot and you're looking at all the different hundreds of, different options for white, photo paper is exactly the same. And there is no right or wrong answer here. I think it really depends on the type of image that you are creating, what is going to, balance the image, what is going to support the image as to what the color temperature is. Everyone has their own feeling about this. What I can tell you is that objectively speaking, the bamboo and the sugarcane natural line, these are warmer compared to the hemp and the agave papers. The hemp and the agave are more neutral. For example, in images like this one here, where, there's some blue in the sky up here, when the paper is warmer, like bamboo and sugarcane, that extra warmth in the paper, that little extra bit of yellow makes, things like blue, makes blue look just a little more green. It's like the hue of it just changes ever so slightly. And the neutrals in the image and the whites in the image also lean just a little more towards the warmer end of things. And for some people, that's great. That's exactly what some people want because it adds some richness to the image. It makes warm hues in the image look a little more vibrant. So that can be a positive thing. Me personally, I prefer the cards to be or paper in general to be as unbiased as it can possibly be. I like for it to be neutral and more similar to what it is that I'm seeing on a properly calibrated display. I prefer the more neutral temperature of the hemp and the agave papers. Like the blue, on this photo here looks almost exactly like the blue that I'm seeing on screen over there. So I prefer that. So if you're looking for a more neutral, natural paper from Hahnemühle, I think the hemp and the agave would be good options. Okay, then there's the texture of the paper, the fibers that are within the paper itself. And usually you see the fibers in like brighter areas of the image, especially, like clouds, like in this black and white image here. You don't really see it so much down in the shadows and the blacks, but you definitely notice it in the brighter areas of the image. The sugarcane has the most pronounced texture, and texture isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes texture adds additional depth and just, it gives more contour to your image, which can be good with some images. Personally, I usually don't like that. I like for the paper to be less textured. I don't want to see little squiggly things like in the bright areas of the paper. And so because of that, my favorite of the four, the one that has the least amount of texture, is the hemp. And then finally, when it comes to color and tonality, all four of these papers are matte papers, so they're not going to have the deeper blacks that you get with like a satin paper or a pearl paper or some type of semi-gloss or definitely less than a gloss paper. It's matte, so everything is going to be lifted and a little bit faded. So that's to be expected. And, tonality-wise, all four of these papers are almost exactly the same, with the exception of the sugarcane. In my tests, at least, the sugarcane comes out just a little bit darker. It's just not as bright, not as inherently bright, the paper, I think, as the other three. So, of the four here, which one is my favorite? Well, if I were buying multiple boxes of these cards and I wanted to get a matte paper that was part of their natural line, I would get the hemp. I think the hemp paper is beautiful. It's neutral. It doesn't have the warmth of these other two. It has the least amount of texture. The brightness is good, and it's just a beautiful. It's just a really nice looking paper. They all look good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're all. I mean, at this point, it's just like the differences are so small when you're comparing them all side by side. But if I had to choose one and like invest in one, I'd be buying the Hemp. Now you can buy these photocard tins with other types of paper from Hahnemühle. They also have like photo rag Baryta, fine art Baryta. They have semi-gloss, luster. So if those, are more your speed, like if you print black and white and you would prefer to use a Baryta paper, that's typically what I like to use because they have a brighter white point. And I'd be really interested to try semi-gloss or some type of, glossier finish than the flat matte of these natural cards here. But if you are a fan of matte paper, like you like for your images to look a little more subdued, not be reflective when you're, picking them up and holding them in the light, you can view them from any angle and they look the same. They look good, they look good from every angle. These natural papers are really nice. I'm really impressed with them. I mean, honestly, I could probably go out and buy like a box of these hemp papers here and be perfectly happy with that. And I like the fact that this natural line is also more sustainable because it's not, 100% cotton rag. It's a blend that includes some of these more natural, less environmentally intensive materials that go into them. And so I think that's a good thing, obviously. I do think the whole, taping paper, to a template and then feeding this through the printer and then peeling the card off of it is, it's not ideal. And if your printer does not support borderless printing and you have to do this, just remember to use just a smidgen of tape. Just use a little bit because really you're not going to need much. And as long as you use just a little bit, I think you should be perfectly fine. So everything mentioned in this video, it's all linked down below in the video description if you care to follow up on anything I talked about in this video. And that includes all of the paper. I'm also going to link to my printer as well if you're interested to know more about that. And feel free to reach out to me with any questions too. If you want to, talk about making prints, buying printers. I've had people ask me before about buying printers, and I'm by no means, the world's expert on it, but I do have some experience. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to. You'll find my email address in the video description if you care to do so. That's it, everyone. Please remember, give this video a thumbs up down below if you enjoyed it or you learned something from it or both. Please take a moment and do that for me. I would appreciate it. And also remember to subscribe if you want to, hang out and talk about photography again in the future. That's it. Thanks so much. See you around.